When you travel across Jamaica, from the quiet countryside of St. Thomas to the cane fields of Clarendon or the misty hills of St. Andrew, you might spot a quick little creature darting across the road or moving through the grass. That creature is the mongoose. Fast, clever, and always on the move. But here's the twist. The mongoose isn't from Jamaica. It is not even from the Caribbean. You see, over a century ago, it was brought here for one purpose, and that single decision changed the island forever. Now, in the late 1800s, Jamaica's sugar industry was the backbone of its economy. But planters faced a serious problem: rats. These pests destroyed a large portion of the sugarcane crop by chewing through young stalks, damaging stored sugar, and threatening the profits of plantations that were already struggling after emancipation and economic decline. Snakes also posed a challenge, not because they were harmful to the crops, but because plantation workers feared them. Though Jamaica's snakes were mostly non-venomous, their presence made workers uneasy, and it was common at the time for people to kill snakes on sight, even those that helped control the rat population. Now, with fewer snakes and increasing rat numbers, planters became desperate for a solution. So the question arose: was there another animal that could do the job of hunting rats without scaring workers or damaging crops? The answer seemed to come from halfway across the world: India. There, a small carnivorous animal called the mongoose was famous for its ability to kill snakes and rodents. It was agile, clever, and immune to certain types of snake venom. In 1872, a Jamaican sugar planter named William Bancroft Espute, who owned the Spring Garden estate in Clarendon, introduced the mongoose to the island. He had heard of its success in other colonies, like Hawaii and Trinidad, where it was used to control rats in sugarcane fields. Espute imported 11 mongoose, 9 males and 2 females, from India, and released them on his property to test their effectiveness. At first, the plan seemed to work perfectly. Rats began disappearing from the estate, and news of this miracle solution spread like wildfire across Jamaica. Within just a few years, mongoose were released in cane-growing areas across the island, from St. Catherine to St. Mary. By the late 1870s, they had multiplied rapidly and spread throughout much of Jamaica. But the success did not last long. The mongoose, being a natural hunter, didn't stop at rats. It began preying on small birds, frogs, lizards, and even the eggs of ground nesting birds. This raised a new question. What happens when a species introduced to solve one problem creates several others? Soon, the mongoose population exploded. The rats, which were active mostly at night, avoided much of the mongoose's hunting, since mongoose hunt during the day. Meanwhile, Jamaica's native species, many of which had no natural defense against a predator like the mongoose, began to decline. The Jamaican boa, also called the yellow snake, which was once common across the island, became rare in several regions. The Jamaican iguana, already struggling due to habitat loss, disappeared entirely from the mainland for decades. And the birds, like the Jamaican blackbird and quail dove, which nest close to the ground, saw their numbers fall sharply. Now, Jamaica wasn't alone in making this decision, or rather, mistake. Other islands in the Caribbean, including Barbados, Trinidad, Grenada, and St. Lucia, also imported mongoose in the 19th century. All of them experienced the same pattern: a brief reduction in rat problems, followed by widespread ecological disruption. The mongoose quickly earned a reputation as one of the most destructive invasive species in the Caribbean. Even today, it is blamed for the extinction or endangerment of several native species, including birds, reptiles, and amphibians. Scientists studying these islands often use the mongoose as a case study for how human interference with nature can have irreversible effects. Now, when the mongoose was brought to Jamaica, the idea looked simple. Let a natural predator deal with the pests. But nature is rarely that straightforward. What seemed like an easy fix for rats and snakes quickly became one of the biggest ecological mistakes in Jamaica's history. There were several reasons why the mongoose project failed, and each one exposes a misunderstanding about how ecosystems really work. Number 1. The mongoose and the rat lived in different worlds. One of the first mistakes was assuming that the mongoose and the rat would constantly cross paths. In reality, they live on opposite schedules. The mongoose is a daytime hunter, active in the morning and afternoon, when it can see and chase its prey. Rats, on the other hand, are nocturnal, meaning they come out mostly at night. So while the mongoose was hunting during the heat of the day, the rats were out feeding on sugarcane and sugar stores at night. Their paths barely crossed. This means that although the mongoose killed a few rats here and there, it was never around when the real rat damage was happening. Instead, the mongoose started hunting whatever it could find in daylight: lizards, birds, frogs, and anything smaller than itself. The planters had introduced the wrong hunter for the wrong time of day. Number 2. Uncontrolled breeding and no natural enemies. Another major problem was how fast the mongoose reproduced. A single female mongoose can have up to 3 litters per year, with several pups in each one. And because Jamaica didn't have large predators like hawks, foxes, or big snakes to keep their numbers down, their population exploded. Within just a few years, the island went from a handful of imported mongoose to thousands. They spread from plantation to plantation and eventually into forests, villages, and mountains. With no natural checks and balances, the mongoose became a new top predator in an environment that wasn't built for it. When a species grows unchecked, it doesn't just compete, it dominates. And that's exactly what happened in Jamaica. Number 3. A predator with no boundaries. Mongoose are opportunistic feeders. That means they eat whatever is easier to catch, not necessarily what humans want them to eat. When rats weren't available, they hunted frogs, lizards, crabs, and birds. They raided chicken coops and destroyed the nests of ground nesting birds. Over time, this caused a sharp decline in native wildlife, some of which had been unique to Jamaica. For example, the Jamaican boa, which once kept the island's rodent population in check, became rare in some regions. The Jamaican iguana was nearly wiped out, and many species of frogs and birds lost their natural balance in the food chain. Instead of controlling pests, the mongoose became one. Number 4. Disrupting the natural balance. Nature operates like a network. Every plant, insect, and animal has a role. The snakes that plantation workers once feared were actually part of that system, helping to keep rats under control. But when humans began killing snakes and then added the mongoose, they threw that balance completely off. The mongoose not only replaced the snakes, it overpowered them. But unlike the snakes, it didn't specialize in hunting rats. It just hunted everything. That imbalance rippled through the ecosystem. With fewer snakes and frogs, insects increased. With fewer birds, pests multiplied. And with more mongoose, native species disappeared. By trying to solve one problem, humans unknowingly created several others that were far worse. The mongoose story is more than just history. It's a warning. It shows what happens when people interfere with nature without understanding it. The intentions were good, but the outcome was disastrous. And those same mistakes are still being made in different ways today. Let's break down the main lessons we can learn from Jamaica's mongoose experiment. Number 1. Nature doesn't respond to quick fixes. When humans look for fast, one-step solutions to complex problems, they often overlook how deeply connected nature is. The planters wanted a quick way to get rid of rats, but they didn't study the behavior or feeding habits of the mongoose before bringing it to the island. Nature doesn't work on shortcuts, it works on systems. A decision that seems small today can spiral into something uncontrollable tomorrow. That's exactly what happened here. Number 2. Every ecosystem has its own balance. Each island, forest, or river system has its own set of rules. What works in India or Trinidad won't necessarily work in Jamaica. When humans move species from one environment to another, they risk disturbing that natural rhythm. Jamaica's wildlife evolved without predators like the mongoose. So when it arrived, native animals didn't know how to defend themselves. They were caught off guard. This shows why scientists today are cautious about introducing or even removing species from an environment. Because once balance is broken, it can take centuries to repair. And that's if it is possible at all. Number 3. The importance of studying before acting. In the 1800s, ecological science was still young. Most decisions were based on observation, not research. Planters saw the mongoose killing snakes in India and assumed it would do the same to rats in Jamaica. Today, we have the benefit of knowledge and technology. Before making changes to nature, whether it's introducing a species, clearing a forest, or draining a wetland, we must study the possible outcomes. Because as history shows, one careless act can reshape an entire country's ecosystem. Number 4. Learning from past mistakes. The mongoose is still here, and it's not going anywhere. But its story serves as a reminder that the environment remembers what we do. Every action leaves a footprint. So when modern Jamaica faces new challenges, invasive plants, pollution, climate change, we must ask ourselves, are we solving the problem or just moving it somewhere else? The mongoose story teaches us to think long-term, to respect natural systems, and to remember that not every problem in nature needs human intervention. So let's reflect on all of this. The mongoose was brought to Jamaica to help. but it ended up changing the island's ecology forever. It's a story of good intentions, poor understanding, and lasting consequences. But it's also a story of learning, one that encourages us to study, observe, and protect the natural balance that makes Jamaica unique. Because once that balance is gone, there is no bringing it back. Today, the mongoose is fully established across Jamaica. You'll find it everywhere, from mountain slopes to seaside cane fields. And for many rural Jamaicans, it's just part of the landscape, often seen dashing across roads or lurking near farms. Some farmers still appreciate them for killing snakes and insects, but others see them as pests that attack chickens and young livestock. Their role in the environment remains controversial. They control certain pests, but they also threaten native biodiversity. Interestingly, mongoose are now being studied not just as pests, but as a symbol of ecological resilience. Despite their negative impact, they have adapted perfectly to Jamaica's environment. They live close to human settlements, survive off food scraps, and thrive in almost every habitat on the island. It's a part of our history, a part of our landscape, and a lesson that still matters in the modern world. That nature, once changed, cannot easily be reversed. Thank you for watching.